I just wanted to describe a little bit about game creation, and I've made my own games many times before, and I kind of realized from making all of those that there's a lot that goes into the creation, and when you first start creating a game, you have to count how many items to put in the room, and you have to remember that they were there, and usually when you stick two things together, it kind of globs up together and helps you remember it. But I think that as a good proposal for the game RuneScape is that I believe that what we should do as a community, as people who have played a game like this is the specific one though, is that we should um, basically look at all of the puzzles and how things were created in it and then figure out a psychonaut method, in order to basically process all of the information so all of the subconscious knowledge that we're absorbing while we're playing the game can be actually realized that it's not subconscious, and anything subliminal in it, and I mean as far as you can go, anything just crazy as possible that actually still makes sense in any way, shape, or form, can be explained. And anyway, for one, I'm gonna kind of demonstrate one thing that we can kind of look at, and it's the fact that I'm putting some empty bone meal in one of these pots in this 1950s chair, is what it looks like. Or it looks like a satellite. It also looks like a hand, you know. It also looks like a crescent moon, It also looks like a banana with a little bit of a shade here. And it looks like there's a lot of slime, probably spit, that is plopping off of it, just from being looked at. It could be a mouth that's open and isn't one. It could be a wide open mouth drooling. And then we're going to go ahead and use the bone meal with the active fungus. And, basically looking at it, I mean, we're worshiping something and it does make you drool. It's something that I've kind of noticed. But there's a lot more to kind of realize in the whole sorcery. Also, using poetry and lyricism, which I'm constantly doing, I've kind of devised myself to be quite a vacuum when it comes to things that are near me, so I can, understand how they were placed there and why. And, now, I'm realizing that it takes, 4 of these for this quest. There's 4 angles, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 areas here, working out to the 4th one here. There's a whole math to everything in this area. And I want a whole community to come together and just figure out what the hell all this shit is as psychonauts and like looking for a new basic religion. But like really and legit though, like looking at what the hell this shit is. Like, okay, it's where these things are placed, it's what it says when you examine them. Every single possible clue that has anything to do with anything that you can just say, oh, there's 2 skeletons, so we'll just call this place 2 skeleton, and then that's good enough, right? And I mean, just saying, everything needs to be counted. These little dots, how many of these are here, is what I would count if I'm in a video game, because I want it to teach a lesson, and I want it to be something that I have to discover, and it has to be really, psychonautic, and it has a lot to do, with the body, and something that we can deeply learn. I mean, I've played music and it works backwards. I think that I want to learn something cool about this shit. How these are positioned is important. Legs are spread here against the walls. This is north up here. This is west. This is probably a compass here, we could say. East, south, but there's no, like northwest, is not there. And there could be pool here. I mean, anything like that. I mean, you have to look at every single thing. This is a cursor, and I mean, use every clue you can and then count every single one of these, the little brown pieces and the different pixels. Like there's ones with chunks and there's ones without. And then take all of those and then count them, list them 1, 2, and 3, and then list all of this shit and how many of those are, and then come up with some kind of way as to why this dude is named what it's named, and also why the dude is named what is named, and is why he can move randomly and why he would stop at those intervals in real life. Like if every other thing was going on and you could see through people with those chameleon skins, like you can see through somebody in like a FPS game, figure out why he can move like that. And like, what would he be doing if he's really doing that and isn't a character in a game though? Because I mean, something would be obviously he's walking to something, but I mean, that's hard to stand up in that position. And if anything, it could be a sexual position, and he's just like, because I mean, it's hard to stand up straight like that without slipping and falling, just the way that they're exactly standing. I mean, you rock a little bit back and forth or something to keep the balance. You couldn't just walk like that, and it couldn't just. I mean, that thing in his hand is probably falling apart with him walking, because it doesn't look like it's created right, but it's there, so you could figure out what that is. And then, I mean, you can figure out the whole quest. Dude's name's Cow Killer. There's that there, and I mean, cows are really cute, and they don't hurt you, and I always wish that I could have, like that kind of quality to myself to augment me with, like when I'm doing my so-called yoga. And then we can look down here and count all this stuff, count these, count how many steps it is, how many layers, other games that you've learned from it with, count these bubbles, and then when you go all the way down, they got these little loopers that comes through. Figure out what those apply to. To me, it's the song with Petey Pablo, and he's like, it makes my toes curl. Love it when you do that, girl, because it feels like those little toes have them little curls coming through it. I don't know if that's it though. And then you can count all these bubbles, figure out what they mean. You can see that looks like a pelvis, and it obviously is a pelvic area. But I mean, you can figure out what it does in the body, and I mean, all of these things can be introduced to the body and be understood. And you can count everything in there and what it resembles. That can be understood kind of like a survival manual. I mean, like how many candles is in here is even relevant to something. I mean, it's not just because it's even, but even if it was symmetrical, I mean, any one little thing, I mean, there's 3 skeletons, and I mean, you can understand a lot, a whole bunch just by counting, how many of these candles, is up against this wall, and that's a ladder. That it has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps in it, and it's in here, and that's why then you have to see that is the reason why that they have that ladder there, and why it has 3 right here, but doesn't go any further, and that's a miniature ladder. Then you have to see how that is a floor, I mean, those are things that we all don't really pay any attention to, and then even this, I mean, just until it makes enough of a story to where you can engineer this and kind of understand it, like, kind of encapsulate the information, that could be a pelvis. It could be something there that represents why it's there. But there's something to do with sorcery, and I really want to see what the hell it is, and I don't know what it is, but it looks like it is a really cool philosophy, or at least an explanation of how someone died, or, why there's a pile of, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 people in the room. Why is there 16 in this room? It has 2 doors on each side, it has steps on both sides, and the steps have, let's see how many they have, and, there's 4 here on each one of these, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's 16 people in the room, and, then there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 of these, and that would be symmetrically 24 on both sides, and then there's 36, which is not 16, but you could find a multiple of 16 and 4 or something. 4 by 4 is 16, and 32, isn't it? But you could multiply 4 by 16, 4 by 12, and you could get 4, 2, 6, 46 or 56, and just figure out that to the 16th power or whatever. I mean, you have to just and then just kind of figure out how that source works and how that works as a source for you. Because sorcery is just figuring out the source of something and then giving it recognition of where it was from. Is what I'm thinking, using this form of, but this is how I'm kind of learning about the world now. And I interact with it a lot different than I used to because I played this game. And here I was looking at these slime balls, and because I used to use RPG Maker to make games, and I used to spend months and months just creating them. And I had little clues in there that I didn't look at now, but I know that they were there now because everything has that. It's like when there's a area, I mean, there's a volume, and it's got to fill it all the way. And then there's 3, 2, 3, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 globs, and then there's 1 over here, 3. That's 3 threes, and then there's 1, 1 there. And there's also, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And using that math, there's a, shit. That there's, this is like trivia and puzzle, like really, like genius shit. But, to me, I think relevant knowledge would probably be that the Old Knight was level 125, unless this quest was made before the Old Knight, because he was like the second in place. Things like that, could be included. And that is 3, 3, 1, and 3 on that side. That would be also the name of the person who was killing a cow, who killed a chicken and a cow, but it was already dead. Maybe he gave it life. But his name was Cow Killer 1. Wait, I don't remember the exact name. It was Cow Killer 31337. Then you have 3, 1, 3, 3, and then you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's a big glob right here. I don't know. That could be 1, and that could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or something. But that kind of math is what we should be using, I'm pretty sure. But you can see that that's 3, that's 3, that's 1, and that's 3, and then 3, 1, 3, 3. He's level 123, and then there's 3, 3, 3, 1, and then there's 2, 1, and then there'd be the other 2, and then those 2 globs would have to do with something, or this one would have to do with something, and figure out what that glob is. To me, that reminds me of eating some kind of sandwich or something, and then you like have extra mayonnaise on it, and it just kind of plops when you eat the sandwich. And it'd have to do something with it, though. It's got to be a method in there. Has to be. And there has to be a fucking number of all of these little things and what they all mean. And I think that I would be satisfied with walking in one of these, digital areas that has so much that you can learn from it. And even outside of it, it has to be math done when it was made. And then they didn't really realize but wanted to discover what it would mean. And that's what you can help me with, just by figuring out, what the hell all that shit means. And just something that you can apply, like something really, really basic. Like, for example, why these, like everywhere in the game, are like that. You could say someone died while they were running, but they were leaning sideways, because they looked like they were doing something, and that makes you look like you're falling apart. If someone's viewing you externally and you're in an awkward position, maybe running would be weird, and then you don't notice that. And then as a lesson, you could be like, hey, you know what, that shit's right, because, if I didn't notice the skeleton was here, I'd probably not pay attention to that. Or, somebody died with their legs spread open, so, for them to get some or something. You gotta take everything, and you have to use vulgar responses, because that's the only ones that we all think of the most, because there's constant uncensorship and constant re-censors if we don't sense, censorship. And then, you could just like some kind of encyclopedia or some shit. Like just to wonder, like 1, 2, 3, figure out why one of these areas has that many bricks. And then you could just say, you know what? This should be like in a wiki or something. I could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I could say, well, each one of these has 22 on each side. And then you could say, there's a reason why. you know. You could also have a reason why this is called ectofuntus. You know, to me, it's like a toe, and then it has something in between it. You know, like the digital line that goes in between there could be maybe what that is, you know, when you're sitting in the chair. Maybe that's what the fungus is. But it's not fungus because it's a T and it's like a split of it, but it's just not nasty because it's ecto. You know, maybe is why. Or I'm wrong about that and it's worse. But I mean, there's got to be something to figure out what that is, you know. And I mean, it has to have, you know, something to learn. And you know, I mean, it's just not junk. It's not just a piece of crap. I mean, you know, you can watch your kids play games, and I mean, you get more out of it. You know, I mean, you should. You know, I mean, if you're not a good parent if you can't see all of the stuff that does. I mean, you know, I mean, just that small impact. I mean, just look at all of this and see, like, if this was your kid right here, you know, or if you were, I mean, or if you were like the person who was being taught here, you know, you could be like, man, you know, this dude walked around this, and what does it resemble? Because I'm trying to learn from it, you know. So, you know, keep that in mind, you know, but I mean, really, I mean, we need to come together and just figure out all of the shit that has these games to do with, you know, and just come up with a real backstory as to why those are there, and not some piece of shit backstory that it always does. That's a censor avoider backstory that doesn't, you know, you know, like say the right thing. Like you can't just say, oh, that's a skeleton because it reminds me of some British object that has nothing to do with like functioning in real life. You know, like I want this to make me more healthy when I play this game. And I want to be like, I want to figure out the math of this whole room. And then I want to be able to just remember it. Like, you know, like, okay, there were 16 skeletons, and there's 16 bodies in here. I know that 16 by 16 is a dimension for a room. I know that 1 foot is, you know, as long as, you know, King whatever's foot that created it in the United Kingdom, you know, they said a foot was as long as your foot. Let's say that could be 4 people. You know, I mean, I want to have all of those metaphors, you know, and then I want to be able to understand what this means, is what I want.